Hello, I'm Ivan Vesely, the founder and CEO of Infinity. Catheter-based treatment of mitral regurgitation is an exciting new area that builds on the successes of transcatheter aortic valve implantation. But current generation technologies are still crude and bulky. My team knows heart valves. We've built a heart valve company before. We've got the technical know-how and the business experience to do it again. The market we are addressing is huge. Today, the US market for transcatheter aortic valves is already $1.5 billion, and by the end of this decade, it will be $5 billion. The transcatheter mitral valve market is estimated to be 5 times greater, $25 billion. Acquisitions of early-stage companies have already begun. This summer, 4 companies were acquired for almost $2 billion. Such large acquisitions are common in this business, and there will be a lot more of them in the future until one particular strategy is shown to be superior. Mitral regurgitation is arguably the most common disease in the US. Almost 1% of all people have some form of MR. In the US, 2.5 million people are affected, and 1 in 10 patients over 75 years of age have moderate to severe MR, meaning that they should be treated. But only 2% of the severely affected patients get treated, and half of those that are even considered get rejected because they have other comorbidity. Basically, they are too sick from other causes to undergo open heart surgery in a safe manner. On top of that, mitral valve surgery is technically difficult and few surgeons can do it well. There is a real need for non-surgical therapies in this space, just like there has been for the aortic valve. TAVR, aortic valve replacement, has absolutely revolutionized the treatment of aortic stenosis. Those that have been skeptical about TAVR now embrace it. Both large and small companies are competing in the space, with Edwards and Medtronic having the lion's share of the market. But why all this excitement? Well, because it just works. The devices are getting smaller, which makes them safer. Clinical outcomes have been remarkably good, and that has encouraged its use in the mainstream population. In Germany, over half of all aortic valve replacements are being done via catheter. In the US, the gatekeeper on this technology has been the FDA, but in Europe, it has just taken off. Here are the main contenders. CardiAQ was recently acquired by Edwards because the Edwards Fortis valve had thrombosis issues. Abbott acquired Tendyne, Medtronic acquired 12, and Heartware acquired Valtech. There are about 10 others developing essentially the same approach, large, bulky devices that are self-anchoring within the mitral apparatus. But anchoring against the soft mitral valve is far more complex than anchoring against a hard calcified aortic valve. As such, TMVR devices are complex, large, and bulky. Most require 34 French introducers, and many need to be inserted via the apex of the heart, which is a surgical procedure. What is needed is a transfemoral venous delivery approach. To do this safely, you need a 16 French steerable catheter or smaller. Current generation TMVR devices are nowhere near it. We have a way to reduce the bulk of these devices considerably. We can deliver devices to the mitral valve transvenous with 14 French catheters. We have the details worked out and patents have been filed. Here's how we do it in a generic sense. We've had a lot of experience with 2-part valves from our previous heart valve company, Valve Exchange. With Infinity, we take it a few steps further. First, we attach anchors into the mitral apparatus. They do not affect the function of the valve at all. We then attach a frame to these anchors that also incorporates a sealing cuff. But unlike others, this frame does not affect the function of the native mitral valve, and the physician is not rushed to implant the prosthesis. Finally, we implant a conventional, well-proven transcatheter valve into this frame. This valve takes over the function of the leaky native mitral valve. We thus build the complete system inside the patient's heart, one piece at a time, using 14 French catheters, and via the much safer transvenous route. The end result is the same, transcatheter delivery of a prosthetic valve. But the way we get there is far better. The physician has far greater control during the deployment of each component. It's not a system that pops out of a sheath and one hopes that it lands properly. The physician is in control at all times. Decisions and revisions can be taken during each step. But the main benefit is the far smaller profile, 14 French or better, versus the 32 or 34 French of current systems. Smaller is better, the difference is obvious immediately. The value proposition is thus very clear, smaller is better. Because we are an order of magnitude smaller than the competition, we are going to be the preferred device for all physicians and thus the target for acquisition by all interventional companies, even those that already have a system. We will immediately leapfrog any TMVR device that is out there. But can we be competitive if we are just starting, whereas others have been at it for over 3 years? The answer is yes. First is not always the best. We know the clinical and regulatory hurdles that the others will face, when they start doing real clinical trials. We don't need to qualify a new valve. We have the frame, and that frame will accept existing transcatheter valves already on the market, like the Edwards Sapien XT that is already delivered through a 14 French introducer. We are thus disruptive from a device French size aspect, but also from a regulatory aspect. Our frame will accept already approved devices. We can be in humans almost a year from now and start negotiating an acquisition in 6 months when animal studies demonstrate feasibility. Because we are not developing a valve and the frame components are far simpler, our timeline is very fast and the cost requirements are modest. We can get the first-in-man implants for about $1.5 million and do that in a little over a year. The return on investment would therefore be huge. We believe we can pull this off so quickly because we have done so before. At Valve Exchange, Dwayne and I and our team developed the Vitality valve from scratch and got to first in man in 9 months. Right afterwards, we geared up for our CE Mark studies and built 100 valves in less than 1 year. We are fast and we are efficient. And we have access to all the engineering and clinical resources that we built up at Valve Exchange. The entire QA system that Kevin built for Valve Exchange can be dropped into Infinity. That is how efficiently we can work. So to summarize, we have a totally disruptive technology to deliver modular prosthesis via catheter. We will be highly competitive in a $25 billion TMVR market because our delivery system is an order of magnitude smaller in a functional sense than what is out there today. Smaller is better, smaller is attractive to physicians, smaller expands the number of patients that can be treated. But we're not just smaller, we're smarter. We use existing off-the-shelf transcatheter valves that are already approved for treating aortic stenosis. These devices have already been used in the march position as valve and valve. We just provide the frame. By developing just the frame to anchor these existing TAVR devices, we need less money, less time, and less regulatory effort to get approval. We know we can do this because we've done it before. There are still many candidates looking for an acquisition, and when we show up, we will be on everyone's list. We will have a great exit, and will take only about a year to get there. Thank you for your interest. This slide summarizes the project and the investment opportunity. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via email or phone, and I will be happy to answer them.